Hello everyone! Welcome to my video for the full moon in Gemini, which is happening this upcoming Thursday, December 12th, and that'll be happening in the morning time around 7:30, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I missed my last video. This has been a crazy time, and yeah, I'm hoping that I'm not going to be missing videos moving forward. Doing these new moon and full moon video reports are really a important grounding point for me to sort of sit down and work through the energy, and so I'm really excited to get to share with all of you some of my insights on what to be expecting with this full moon in Gemini and what energy there is available to work with. I also want to say that if anyone is interested in having their own birth chart read, this is a really awesome way to learn about how this astrology can be impacting you personally. Also, if you're interested in needing some last-minute gifts for the holiday season, I do have gift cards available. Sliding scale of 45 to 75 for an hour-long reading or 30 for a half hour. All right. So we're going to dig right in. So we are gearing up for this full moon in Gemini, and there have been, this is a pretty intense moon. This is a pretty intense time, and I think before I even dig into the Gemini-Sagittarius axis, which Sun is in Sagittarius, Moon in Gemini, I'm going to talk a bit about this Capricorn energy, because I think that's the heaviest vibe right now and the most prevalent energy. We just had Jupiter, which is the planet of growth and expansion and evolution, move from Sagittarius, its ruling sign where it was for about a year, into Capricorn. So this is a pretty massive adjustment. And moving from Sagittarius, which is this sort of lighthearted, open-minded, expansive energy, into this very work-focused, this very driven, third-dimensional kind of energy. And Jupiter's moving into Capricorn, joining some heavy hitters. We've also got Saturn and Pluto, which have been moving through Capricorn together, and are coming up on their conjunction when they meet together. I think it's going to be at 21 degrees of Capricorn. And then we also have Venus in the mix. Venus, for this full moon, we have Saturn at 19 degrees of Capricorn, Venus at 20 degrees, and Pluto at 21 degrees of Capricorn. So, and then we have Jupiter in the early degrees of Capricorn. So this Capricorn energy, is just, we're in, turbo mode right now, and I feel like so many people in my life are in this place of either, just working so much and so hard and finding very little time for rest, rejuvenation, feeling this need to be accomplishing, and having deadlines, having concrete hard things that we're kind of working towards. And it's really, the pressure's on. Capricorn energy is, Capricorn sort of brings us to these questions around, what is our purpose here? What is our reputation in this third dimension? What are we accomplishing in our lifetime? What are we building in our lifetime? How are we committed to our purpose? And it's a very stoic and, on one end of the spectrum, it can be a very unemotional, can be a very cold, kind of detached, self-sufficient kind of energy. And so with Jupiter having just sort of moved through those last degrees of Sagittarius with this beautiful conjunction that it went through with Venus and the galactic center, it was this sort of, and that new moon in Sagittarius was this awesome, where are we pointing our arrow? Because now we're in go mode. We're sort of set up for the next year, 2 years with this really intense Capricorn energy that's sort of calling us to be really stepping into our power and accomplishing. And so I think this is a time a lot of people have gone through transitions, massive transitions in the last few months. And this is a time now of like, okay, now we're on the path. Now we're here, and there's, I think, this feeling that we need to be living up to certain expectations. This Capricorn energy can be very demanding of us to be, and we can be really harsh on ourselves when we are finding time to relax, to unplug, to not do anything at all. There can be these sort of stories going that we're being lazy, it's just a lot of pressure, I think, that we're working through right now to be kind of living up to these expectations that we've set for ourselves. And like, we've got a lot of planets in earth signs right now, with Uranus also in Taurus, and like, things take time. Like, things build slowly over time in the third dimension. Like, we're in this we are infinite beings in bodies in this slow, third dimensional reality where, yeah, things take time to manifest. Things take time to go from inspiration and idea form into concrete reality. And I think this Capricorn culmination that we have kind of coming up is this sort of like, what have we been doing with our thoughts? What have we been doing with our minds? What have we been imagining for ourselves? Did we allow ourselves to like sink in to that Jupiter and Sagittarius of like, I am there, it is endless, the opportunities that are available to me and where I can expand to. And if we have, I think there will be some cool stuff that will be starting to come together in this really kind of sense of purpose. It can also be a time, I think, of just like existential dread of like, what am I doing here? I don't feel a sense of purposeness. I don't feel a sense of that I'm on some trajectory or on some track. I think Capricorn often is associated, and the 10th house, which it rules, is associated with like career, and I definitely don't. I think of it more so as like, yeah, purpose or passion. What are we doing with our passion? How are we directing our passion? And what are we creating with our passion? And so, yeah, and then with Venus right in the mix, sort of sandwiched in between these two really intense and heavy planets. Venus, to me, in this mix with Saturn and Pluto, is like, it's about vulnerability. It's like, how are we bringing joy into this, and how are we putting ourselves out there and saying like, this is who I am? Like, not everyone's going to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, or what we're seeing as our purpose right now, but we know. And I think Venus can be sort of triggering around these being liked or being likable or being fitting in and being accepted into social groups and social norms. And like, you know, we're animals. This is like a survival mechanism, is being a part of the group. And so this time where we can be really kind of setting off on our own journey that feels so true to us, I think Venus brings in this little extra like oomph of like, I can do, like, this is my gift. This is my beauty that I'm creating in the world. And I don't mean beauty in typical aesthetic type ways. I think Venus is our values and what we find pleasing, and that might not resonate with other people necessarily, but we know. And so I think having Venus in the mix there is like just bringing this little burst of beauty and joy kind of into and courage and bravery into this moment for us right now. So with this Jupiter in Capricorn, and so yeah, when I make these videos, I feel like they are about the full moon and the new moon, but they're also just an opportunity to kind of like check in with the astrology that's going on right now. And so I'm getting to talking about this full moon, but it does feel important to be talking about this Capricorn stuff first, and some of these other really powerful aspects that are going on. So Jupiter, that's just moved into Capricorn, will be at 2 degrees of Capricorn. It's coming into a trine with Uranus in Taurus, which has been retrograde for a handful of months. And to me, this is about, Uranus in Taurus has just been rocking the boat. It's been breaking things, depending on where this falls in your chart. There's a lot of chaos and a lot of upheaval happening in our very immediate kind of surroundings, if it's in relationships, if it's in our job, if it's in our family, if it's in our health, if it's in spiritual sort of realm. And I think this Jupiter coming into trine, we're starting to see why that has happened, why that breaking has been happening, and why that loss maybe has been, in a lot of ways, opening up new opportunities for us. And so I think this can be a time of sort of seeing. And so let's get to this Gemini and Sagittarius energy. So Sun moving through Sagittarius, though I think with Jupiter now moving into, it's not a typical Sagittarius season, I don't think, where we're feeling this, sort of lighthearted, uplifted, go with the flow, everything's great, everything's expansive, it's exciting, it's joyful, we can just enjoy the pleasure, because Jupiter has just left. So now, the Sun and Mercury are moving together through Sagittarius, and they're, I think in a lot of ways, one of the big keys to this, working with this full moon, is going to be working with that remaining Sagittarius energy of faith, I read something in one of my books, this idea of aligning with the frequency of faith, and what does that mean or look like, and so that has resonated with me deeply. And so yeah, we've got the Sun at 20 degrees of Sagittarius, and the Moon will be at 20 degrees of Gemini. So Sagittarius and Gemini axis is about understanding. Sagittarius is this greater understanding, this sort of like epiphany, philosophical, it's very like kind of higher mind type energy. And then Gemini, on kind of the other end of the spectrum, is the details. It's ruled by Mercury, so it's down in the nitty-gritty, analyzing, making sense of. And I think the Moon isn't necessarily like super comfortable. It's a little awkward, I think, in Gemini, because the Moon ruling our emotions, this sort of like intellectual processing of our emotions, I think can be a little bit, just like there's like a little dissonance there, a little discomfort. But I think that, and I think some of the potential things coming up, there's, I think, a lot of potential for like anxiety at this time, and overwork and exhaustion, and Gemini can feed into that. Gemini can be these like endless to-do lists that just never end, and busy mind that's not allowing us to sit with some of the like maybe heavier, more intense stuff that's coming up underneath. And so I think the way to work with this Gemini energy is to try and quiet the mind, and that understanding will come more energetically than it will, and there may be really clear kinds of words or phrases. Gemini rules language, and what pleasure language can bring and what relief language can bring. It also rules the throat and the voice, and so this can be a time of, we might lose I'm like losing my voice a little right now, like exhausted voices and throats and minds, as we're trying to make sense of these massive transitions that we're in, and these massive really leaps of faith that we've committed to over this last year. And so I think that if the Gemini energy can be, because we have Mercury, which is ruling this full moon, ruling Gemini, moving into Sagittarius, so really encouraging this lighter, more spacious way of thinking and processing. So it does feel like from the ether we may be receiving clear information and a clearer sense of understanding through specific words or phrases. It would be a really awesome time to journal and write and kind of allow a stream of consciousness to sort of mirror back to you through your own words. Like, what are you saying about yourself? Watching and listening to yourself talk. How are you putting yourself down? How are you lifting yourself up? Where are you criticizing yourself for not being enough? I think this this Capricorn stuff is like really, putting a lot of high expectations on us, and it's like we're living in a world where we're being poisoned by our water and the air, and we're being worked to death, and it's not a conducive environment for thriving in so many ways. And so I think with this Capricorn energy, like the anecdote, the medicine, I don't know if anecdote is the right word, the antidote, the medicine, the opposite end of the spectrum is Cancer, and that's where we have the north node of the moon. And we've had the south node of the moon moving through Capricorn and just starting to now depart from this Saturn and Pluto meetup, which was so much sort of like shadow work around Capricorn stuff. It still is like, where do we want to hold on to control? Where are we power hungry? Where are we egomaniacs? Where are we detached from love, really? So I think with this north node in Cancer, it's sort of this check-in of like, is our purpose right now for love? Like, if with this Pluto and Saturn moving through Capricorn, Jupiter moving into Capricorn, like we're on our path, we're doing our thing, the fuel for all of this has to be coming from a place of love and unconditional love, or it's going to be tyrannical. It's going to be power hungry. And I think with this Gemini moon, if we can quiet ourselves a bit and create a little space to hear some of these messages that are coming through for us. So through meditation or journaling, we may find just some really clear information coming at us that can help us, like, the sense of relief that can come when we find the right words. And then the shortcomings of words, like, they're never going to totally get at, particularly, maybe not particularly, but in the English language, like we're just scratching the surface of trying to communicate or understand this experience of being interdimensional, infinite beings in the third dimension. So I'm going to pull some cards to get a little insight into what else we should maybe be looking at. Oh, and we do have this also beautiful trine in the water signs with Mars in its home sign of Scorpio, Neptune in its home sign of Pisces, and in a loose trine with that north node in Cancer. So there is so much around surrender here, and around this around passion, around creativity. And I think this moon is just this cool kind of maybe quiet opportunity of understanding amidst all of this. So I'm just going to pull 3 cards. Alright, so first we have Justice card. I think this is pretty, like, things are about karma. Capricorn is about karma. It's about things balancing out. It's heavy. It's like weighing, yeah, like it's in this 3rd dimension. Like, how have we been, where have we been feeding demons and acting from an egocentric, kind of controlling place, and where have we been acting from love, and that this is gonna come up for us right now. It's gonna show, it's gonna materialize the results of that sort of energetic work that we've been doing. 9 of Pentacles. This is like, we're there, like, it's this kind of like, just be with it. Stop worrying so much. Be in the present, be in your body, be with the abundance around you. Enjoy the pleasure of what is here with you right now. This person's just like lounging with their cat, their plants, like, just be. And then lastly, the Child of Swords, which is, yeah, this kind of this piercing clarity. There can be some perhaps piercing clarity in what we need to say and what we need to communicate. I think this particular character can be a little cold and a little detached, and this is where I really feel like bringing in this Cancer energy and remembering this like connection to love, and working with this Neptune and Pisces and this like powerful Mars in Scorpio. Like, yeah, we're moving forward now. Mercury's out of its shadow phase. Like, it's go time, and what is the fuel? And yeah, I think remembering to be working, remembering and reconnecting with what love feels like through all of this will be so simple. And that's what I'm like, I think Gemini can complicate things, and it's like, it's so simple. It's, yeah, so that's what I've got for y'all today. I am so grateful for everyone who tunes in and resonates with this, and yeah, please reach out if you are interested in doing a reading. So much love.